That might go down as the worst ever business decision in the history of sports. I mean, there's a lot of bad ones too. I mean, you could correlate that to the Red Sox giving away Babe Ruth, or the White Sox trading away Fernando Tatis.
How we doing, everybody? We are Two Johns and a Mike.
Boys, back again. Here we are. Another Sunday with the crew. We are Two Johns and a Mike.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. I'm glad to have everybody back that is paying attention. I'll tell you what, guys, there's been some interesting stuff going on. Look, we are in full swing with preseason. I know we love to hit on the Bears. There's been some really cool games across the league. It looks like, boys, I actually feel sorry for Browns fans, and I think a lot of people throughout the country. I want the Browns to be good so bad, but good God, are they terrible?
So for all the years and all the pain that we have went through, my constant has been, well, at least we're not Browns fans.
Yeah, I know people have been able to say that about the Bears for a long time too, or kind of up and down. We've had a little bit better track record than the Browns, but I mean, I'm friends with some devout Browns fans, and God, I hate having them over on football Sunday, man. I can't do it. It's just like they just sit there in the corner like this. I was like, I get it. I feel your pain, but good God, what a bad situation at QB they have. They're in disarray.
And dude, I didn't think I could find a team with worse back office than ours, at least once upon a time. But
I mean, the Jets are close behind them.
But... Yeah, the Jets are close behind. But every time they get some type of bright star in their orbit, they either trade them away or find a way to destroy them in the game. I don't, the whole Deshaun Watson thing will confuse me for the rest of my life. And
that might go down as the worst ever business decision in the history of sports. I mean, there's a lot of bad ones too. I mean, you could correlate that to the Red Sox giving away Babe Ruth. Or the White Sox trading away Fernando Tatis.
Yes, yeah. And them, the Deshaun Watson thing completely screwing over.
Yeah, there were 2 first-round draft picks, all that guaranteed money, and so I heard they were talking about an AM 1000 today when I was driving back from Michigan, and I agreed with what these guys were saying. It was the best thing for that organization is just to cut ties, get rid of him, swallow it. That's the best you can do. You're already knee deep in shit, so just get rid of him because he's done nothing but wrong for that organization since he got in the door. It doesn't look like Shedeur Sanders is the answer either, but give him the reins and let him go and just see, because he's definitely more talented right now than Deshaun is, and he's got a ceiling that you can see. There's something. You let him go and prove it for this year and next year, because you're not going to be good for about 5. You guys get a lot of missing pieces after you trade away Myles Garrett.
So I'm going to die on this hill, and you bring up like a Sanders or any rookie that you bring in the league. I will always despise going out and getting that first round draft pick, get the shining quarterback, and then you immediately put him in the game instead of sitting him for 3 years, behind somebody and let him learn the NFL ways. And granted, there's always anomalies and things like that. You have
Andrew
Luck, Purdy, Luck and Purdy.
Well, Brock
and
Purdy
like
came
that.
into a great system. Yeah, and
right.
He is. By the way, I want to preface that by saying I think he doesn't get enough love for how good he actually is. I watched him play the Bears last year, and he's a very good.
He's a very good. But those are anomalies. All of your.
He was also Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last pick of the draft.
To be fair, though, the Browns aren't the only team to be doing that. That's been it used to be when we were growing up that you draft a quarterback and have him sit for a couple of years, but that hasn't really been the case for the last 20 years. They get a guy, they get him out there right away.
They get him, and I don't I don't know.
I think it's a mistake.
It's a mistake. I've never agreed
some teams
with it,
can't
so.
afford that though.
Yeah, and that is a thing, and that
in.
is they teams.
This also
everybody
brings me
has
to another
this,
point.
It has to be like now attitude, and I get it on some level, but
those windows
brings me to another point with the Browns. It isn't the guys are drafting there. The team is a mess. It always has been. It's the ownership. It's the upper management. That they don't know how to draft people. They go with their gut. They're so bad. They had to come up with a fictional movie named Draft Day.
That was a good movie.
And it was a good movie. But have you ever analyzed the picks? That coach, you're trading away 3 first-round draft picks to go get a guy you're going to get anyways, and then you trade away 3 second-round draft picks to get your first-round draft picks back, and then you're all excited.
Michael,
that was a horrible.
I understand the drama of the actual movie.
I understand, but you've got basically a whole bunch of people centered around Browns fans basically showing by their draft pick that this guy's a hero for making some of the shittiest trades ever.
Yeah,
and smart, it's for the Browns fans.
Movie, so they could actually be, look what happened after this.
I mean, it's like you come away from that movie thinking this guy's great and everyone's happy and they all feel good. And you look back and it goes, this was a terrible decision. If this was reality, this guy be running on the rails, and like everyone's like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, that's the typical Browns fan. Like you got all these horrible drafts and everyone's all excited about it. I mean, and you're walking away thinking we should feel good because we made this horrible draft.
Yeah, well, you don't know until after it actually happens, though. And if you don't have a foundation of a good core, like what,
but
you look at what the best teams. I always say this, like best teams in baseball, football, everywhere. They build this structure that actually makes sense. Like in football, it's built from the inside out. You build your offensive, defensive line, and then you build backwards. And once you have like a solidified core there that can sustain key pieces like your position players, obviously a quarterback. You can't have a good quarterback without a good line.
But the Browns
they go right. But they
Browns
never had they just add pieces because they're okay. But we're gonna go out and we're gonna get I forget who they're like Trent Richardson and he has a good year and then like everything else falls apart because they're just not. But
they have a history of going out and drafting or acquiring the shiny object that everyone says is the best this year. I mean, before it was Sanders, and there was a lot of questions about Sanders before coming in, but he has got Deion's last name, so everyone's loved with him, and a lot of teams passed on him, but there was a lot of hype, and the Browns got him. And before that, it was Manziel, Johnny Football. They went after him, and it was all hype. I mean, they have a long established history of going after the shiny object.
Look at all the teams in football. The Jets do the same thing. Miami, look at what Miami's done. They always overpay for the established wide receiver to put him in the room. And okay, well, you didn't address the big ticket items here. Where how is he going to get open if the quarterback's running for his life? Like to ask Tua, he's got 65 concussions. He might. I'm surprised that dude's alive.
Tua is my Jay Cutler, basically.
Yeah, but you look at the best teams.
Concussions.
Exactly. Yeah, the best teams all address what's sustainable. We get those pieces out of the way. It might not be sexy, but we're going to win down the road. And then you go get your quarterback on his rookie contract for 5 years, and you got a 5-year window then, so you don't have to overpay the quarterback, and then you decide if it's worth it. Like look, the Chiefs do that. The Chiefs do that. The Seahawks do that. The Patriots do that. All the teams that are always in contention, even the Steelers, name me the last time the Steelers had a bad defense. I mean, they've been up and down, but they're always pretty good. Name me the last time the Seahawks didn't have a good offensive line, or the Patriots or whoever else. Finally, the Bears had a good offensive line last year, and they won the division. So tell me what's important.
No, I agree 100%.
I've been crowing that for 20 years. Like that and the system, like it's always amazing to me. Take the Seahawks quarterback. How many teams how many teams he bounced around, and the Vikings trading him away or just letting him go was I mean, I laughed for a day. I was like, good luck with your season as you trade away the guy that's going to take that team to the Super Bowl, you dumbasses. You know,
the only time it makes sense to make like a big trade or like take on a big money contract of an established player is if you're one piece away, like the Rams did with Myles Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
Like that shook up that all of a sudden you look at that team and you're like, oh my God, how are we going to beat the Rams? How are we going to beat them? You know, but if let's say the Jets went out and they overpaid, like, okay, we're gonna give you 4 first-round draft picks for Myles Garrett. What is that going to do for them? They're still going to win 3 games next year. You know,
exactly.
Obviously, we still got to play the games. You never know. There's always a team that goes worst to first in division, like pretty much every year for the last 15. But you're not one piece away, dude. I'm sorry.
No.
The Rams are like that. That's a scary team right now.
Very few teams are one piece away. It's just so much. There's so much you turnover every year just on retirements or salary cap issues. It's hard to. That's also why you got
the ones that always draft foundational pieces that they know they're going to need in the future. Like those are the ones that are always maybe 1 to 2 pieces away, and potentially even like not even that. Those if you have your core of foundation down, you always have a chance because you're going to be in that mix of being 9 to 11 wins every year if you can protect the quarterback and if you can put pressure on the pass rush or you can put pressure on the quarterback on the other side on the defensive ball. So if you have those, you got a chance every year. And yeah, those teams are always one really good player away or one guy having a big season away. That being said, did you guys watch any of the Bears preseason game?
I did.
Okay, I watched highlights. I didn't actually watch.
I watched a little bit.
Yeah. So, talking points, John. What do you got?
I hated the game. It's it's preseason's always weird for me where I can like really disappointed and be like, hold on a second, this is exhibition. Calm your ass down, number one. Yeah. The first series, I liked. I think Caleb looked fine. He missed he missed
Colson on a potential touchdown.
Potential touchdown.
Little miss,
but they
he did show some vintage Caleb with the jump throw to Romo Dune, who looks healthy, which was really nice to see. That's a good takeaway.
I was really happy with the Romo Dune say. The running back situation, our 2 main guys, nursing themselves has me really worried. We were talking right before we went live. I like Rojo a lot, but he and the reason I like him is that he's not afraid to he's not afraid to run hard every single time, and he's not afraid to throw insane blocks against monsters.
I'm rooting for him, man. I loved him out of the draft. He just doesn't. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he fits this scheme, and it's fighting against him because he's fighting for his life right now. But I really hope he makes that squad at some capacity. But I also kind of hope maybe he gets cut so he can go somewhere where he fits, because I think he's a pretty good running back. I just don't think he fits the Bears scheme. However, this Solomon Ahmed, is that his name? Mm-hmm. So, Oh, sorry, Salvan Ahmed. He looks like he might be somebody that they can use.
He's quick. I really like him. I like that he's quick. I like that he can cut corners really well, and he can find holes when need be. And I really like that about him. So I hope he makes the squad.
Yeah. And, so you look at the numbers from that game. It was Roshan had 12 carries for 42 yards. His long was 8. He's averaging 3.5. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's
Roshan is a third and short type, like
he's a goal line type of back. Yeah. So is Manungai. So is Manungai. So Swift.
And
the Bears don't need that.
And more in the red zone anyway. They have such a dynamic offense where they can bootleg Caleb out. He's got Komet. He's got a wealth of receiving, and he's got Swift and Manungai, who have both been very, very efficient at the goal line. You're not looking for a guy that's Monangai can do what Roschon is doing, and he's going to be in there a little bit more often. He's a more of a split down back. He's just flat out better in this scheme, and I think he might just be a better back in general. I don't know. I'm not a football expert, but it just looks like he's a little bit better right now. However, your dynamic ability from Ahmed, 6 carries for 36 yards, high 16, 6 yards a carry. That's eye-opening right there. I don't care who you're playing against or what line you're playing against. That's, I mean, that shows his big play potential, that you keep that guy over the other one.
The other thing you got to look at, though, is how many running backs are the Bears going to hold on to, especially when you know Johnson likes his tight ends. You put them on special teams.
Practice squad. Like what you do. Practice squad or special teams. I think Roschon, they'd be doing him a disservice to put him on the practice squad. I think they owe him a little bit more just to release him and let him go find a different job, because I think somebody would pick him up. Somebody like the Ravens could put him behind Henry, because it's a very similar type of runner. He's probably going to be third string there, but or somewhere else, where they run between the tackles a little bit more.
Didn't they say when they drafted him it was for running returns? Wasn't that the word on the street when they drafted him?
No,
not Roschon. No, the Ahmed guy.
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know enough about that, but he's showing that he's a pretty capable running back. Like they can put him in there. I think if we lost Swift, him and Monangai could probably. He's not Swift by any means. I'm not saying that that's who we'd be getting if they didn't if Swift got hurt, but you'd still be able to create a scheme or a niche for him that would kind of fit some of those outside running type situations where we're gonna do a sweep, we're gonna do some misdirection stuff. He's explosive enough where he could fit that role, and then you have Monangai as your primary back, because I think Monangai is a primary back. I think you're going to see him on first, second down and a little bit more often this year than you did last year. It's a good situation to be in if they all stay healthy, but that's what brought it up is, okay, well, Monangai's got the hamstring going on right now. Who's going to fill that role behind Swift? What if Swift gets hurt? Then what do you do? So to answer your question, maybe Roschon does make the team, but I don't know. I think I like this Ahmed a little bit more in this situation.
And I agree. He's better. He's better for the system. So Swift is always a question mark with me, just because, Ben didn't. I don't want to say he didn't utilize him, but he's.
How did he not utilize him? He had a 1,200 yards from scrimmage.
Yeah, but Swift came to us before Ben did, so there was a lot of question marks, like, because it seemed like because Detroit went to to their 2-back system, or they had Montgomery and us getting rid of. Don't get me started. I was screaming out my window the day like that we got. We were lucky to get like Monangai like last year. Like I would prefer to before Monangai came over, I wanted like a Montgomery Swift backfield, because I really
been interesting, but Montgomery was going to cost too much. Like he was going to cost a little bit too much, I think, and it comes back to the topic that we discussed in I think our last podcast about how that running back position has been devalued a little bit, because you can find guys like Monangai in the 5th, 6th round now who seem just as capable as Montgomery was, depending on the coaching staff and what you have in front of them.
I got a lot to say about Swift, or at least my opinion on Swift. He did come here before Johnson, but he was badly utilized by Eberflus.
Badly.
And the other badly. And
he was terrible.
The other issue, though, was Swift had the worst line. They weren't giving him any blocks. Yeah. They were going to make any. I got in arguments with my dad about this. He's like, "We got to get rid of Swift." I'm like, "It's not Swift. It's the line." I go, "You give him
the head coach.
You give him someone that can block somebody, and that he's not getting hit in the backfield every pass, and he'll get a chance to do something." I go, he didn't get that. And now that we've got a line, Swift is showing up, and I'm like, it wasn't Swift that was the problem. It was the line and it was the coaching. He had games where he was the primary running back and he was getting 5 touches with Flus. I mean, that is horrible. I mean,
for a running back town, you know.
And Swift got a lot of bad. He got a lot of shade from his performance there, but in my opinion, it wasn't Swift. Mm-hmm. It was the way he was being used, and it was the line that was running. Now that he's got he's got a line worth the damn, and he's got a good play caller. It's great.
So we can look at the numbers. 2024, 253 rushes, attempts, 950 yards, 959, 3.8 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns. 2025, 2023 to 2025, 223 rush attempts. So not significantly less, but it's a full game worth of rushes less, at least if you're a primary back. 1,100 yards, 4.9 yards a carry, and 9 touchdowns. And that doesn't include his receiving, which was, I think he had almost 1,300 all-purpose yards. Yeah. And that's 1 year. That's 1 year, and that's coaching, and that's line.
That is coaching and line.
That's all.
And he made plays when we needed him. He scored touchdowns when we needed him. So
and you saw what he can do in a situation where he's a smart running back. He understands how the misdirection works from Ben Johnson's scheme, where if you guys haven't had your heads in the sand, you see how they do the misdirection where the whole line's going this way, Caleb and the running back go this way, and they have an option or they hand it off. So now you got to beat one guy, and you have he did an incredible job of hitting gaps that weren't there before. And you can see what he can do when he has those gaps. He gets to the second level and he makes moves. He's very capable. Like DeAndre Swift needs a little bit more love. And in year 2, who knows yes, he's getting older, and maybe his shelf life, especially with this team and in general, is probably limited, because we all know how running backs kind of peter off once they get past 28, 29 years old, unless their name is Derrick Henry. But he just, I think he needs a little bit more respect put on his name, Michael, because he's a very well. You're in agreement with me on this.
Yeah.
No, I've always just been very curious about not his performance, because he was great last year, but I was just very, very curious about this year, because he didn't need to leave Detroit. He was doing fine in Detroit, and for some reason Ben didn't like him, so he left. And then he comes to the Bears.
I don't think it was Ben that didn't. I don't think that was the case. I can't speak to that, because I'll sound ignorant if I say
I am.
But then why does
I may be talking out of my ass, but that was like a general. I felt like that was like a general consensus.
It would have been really easy for them to cut him and save that salary cap space if Ben didn't like him, because he is a higher paid back.
The reason there was
a free agent, wasn't he?
Well, there was
Eberflus brought him over.
So Montgomery did not need to go to Detroit, and then Detroit, remember, they drafted that running back when they had a full running back room that was already kicking ass. And then Swift left, so everyone had a feeling like
he went to the Eagles first, right? He went to the Eagles.
I think he went to the Eagles first.
Yeah, it was the Eagles, and then he came from the Eagles to Chicago, and he was fairly productive with the Eagles, but I don't think he fit that scheme.
I think that's why it's always been like a question mark to me, and just relationship wise, not his performance, just relationship wise, because it always. When Detroit made those running back moves, it was really, really confusing to me, especially when they went and they got that running back in the draft when they already had a running back room that was already kicking the crap out of the league. So
the thing is, but you're going to draft, you have to draft at least one running back every single year anyway. And especially if there's a good one on the board, I know Michael, who's texting right now instead of paying attention to the group.
I was looking up Swift. I thought he.
No, he disagree. Like, I know you'll disagree with me on a lot of these, but in the draft, when the draft room hits, what I loved about what Ben Johnson did this year was draft the best player available. And if Swift is the best player available, you can't have too many running backs. Like, you really can't. There's so much, there's so much uncertainty with what is going to happen because they're taking so much beating. If you are running between the tackles, especially, it's like getting hit by a car every single time that you get, like,
on either side.
Well, either way, like, if you're lucky to get pancaked by the offensive line, if you get to the second level and get hit by Ray Lewis, it's like running into a goddamn bus. It literally is like it correlates
every time they show that angle on a game, and you're watching a running back like disappear into inches and manages his way out of the pile. It's always amazing.
Which I'll tell you what, and this is maybe a topic for a separate entire podcast, but you look back at when the league was different, when it was more of a old school run game oriented play action pass, a lot less West Coast offense with the drop, with the shotgun and everything else like that. Your Walter Paytons, Jim Browns, these guys that were running the ball, 35 times a game and they were taking hits. They were like, how the hell were they able to stay on the field? Like, these guys were like, they're superhuman. I know there's like a certain amount of bigger, stronger, faster as guys, like the players that were on the defensive side of the ball back then aren't as big and physical as they are now. Like, there is a certain aspect to that, but they're still doing the same thing. And they're still running into a brick wall. And those guys just like Walter Payton.
Well, dude, Payton didn't take the hits; he gave the hits. He was just carrying the football.
Even the closest thing to him is that I've seen in my era. I know you guys got to actually watch Walter Payton play. I never actually got to watch him play. I just saw the highlights. But you watch, like,
I got served hot dogs by Walter,
Eric Dickerson, these guys, even like closer up to like Marshall Faulk's era and stuff like that. Even though he's more like, he had a lot more receiving aspect to his game. Well, like, these guys still carried the ball. It's like Walter right, Walter left, Walter down the middle.
I have a pie chart. I have a pie chart that is burned into my brain that I saw on a CBS Sunday, and it was during the game. They made a pie chart, and it showed the Bears offense, and it said 34% Payton.
Yeah.
He was 1/3 of their goddamn offense.
Hey, Michael, look it up real quick. See what the average percentage of usage, like just actual like percentage of handoffs to today's NFL running backs. See what it is compared to what it was. Because obviously there's a much higher percentage of passing now. Like,
it's definitely an aerial game now. Yeah. It's definitely
it has to be. We're on offense, and the rules have been completely manipulated to favor offense. There's no. It is a much softer. Well, I won't say soft because I will never call a football player soft. These guys are animals, but it's a softer league as far as what they're going to call. So it's there's the hits aren't quite as bad, but wouldn't that be more conducive to running the ball? You'd think.
You'd think.
Yeah,
it is. It is painful for me to go back, and I do it a lot. Go back and watch like old games and old broadcasts and stuff, and you're watching these hits, and you're going. You can see their life expectancy like decrease with I can't the cornerback.
Do we want to look at quarterback runs also?
No.
Because
the quarterbacks run a lot more.
Yeah, those have kind of. Yeah, they a lot more scrambling nowadays.
Yeah, it's gone way up. I'm just talking about specifically running backs
because in the 70s and 80s
is wild.
Because the 70s. Okay,
I got the stats for you.
Wasn't a thing.
All right, let's hear them.
From 1980 to 1989, the running backs got an average of 29 to 31 handoffs a game, which would. which was 46 to 48% of the offensive plays.
Holy shit.
1980, 1989.
Half the offense.
Today, the 2000s to 2005, they get 22 to 24 handoffs a game. And it's 35 to 37%. 35 to 37% of the offensive plays are running.
It's down 10 to 15%. Down 10 to 15% less, which is in this grand scheme of a season, that is so much less impact from actually running between the tackles. That is wild.
I think what you're seeing there is the changes to the rules on defense.
Why the running back position is a little less valued. What's that?
And
100%,
I think that
because plus it's like you remember when the Golden State Warriors kind of transferred the game with Steph Curry when they had an analytical group that said, okay, if we're going to make I forget the percentage. It was like 38 to 40% of our 3-point shots, and that is going to amass more points down the stretch of over the course of a game if we get really good at shooting three. Then we control the tempo of the game. We control like what that other team has to do if we're able to shoot really well from the perimeter. Well, they transform the way the NBA is. So it's kind of the same situation where the warping of the rules and leaning toward the offense, and we want to see more offense. Of course, we're going to throw the ball more, because if I throw it down the field more often, I'd say that ticks up 10%. Big plays tick up that much more. And if I'm really good at that, if I'm better than you, then I take chunks out and I score faster, which puts you on your heels. Like what we talked about with Xavier Thomas, which is why I think Ben went out and got him, is if we flip the field and we put the pressure on you to come back and score right away, I'll take those odds by big chunk plays over the grind on the clock, because then you're leaving it up to 3-point differential as opposed to 10 to 12.
It also shows you how much your coaches are blowing smokes up your butt, because they're always like, we want to have a balanced offense. And, well, statistically, you don't. They've been changing it.
And you can make statistics say whatever you want them to say, but, it's always whoever's on the forefront of that change of the league-wide change always happens from somebody like when the Astros really dove into the analytical side on baseball, when they started focusing a little bit more on, okay, well, the percentages are a lot higher on called strike whiff if we pitch more at the top of the zone, which was, by the way, it's been happening for forever, right? They just identified guys that are more effective at it based off of the numbers and everything. So we're going to go out and draft all these guys, and we're going to pitch to certain spots more frequently than we used to before. We're not going to throw to the bottom of the zone anymore, not anymore, but far less frequently. We're going to pitch away a little bit more, which always happened. However, we're going to emphasize it with the guys that throw with the right metrics on their fastball, and we're going to go vertical and horizontal approach. Well, as soon as they did that, what do? That other than the cheating, they won 2 World Series, was it in like 6 years? Or I know I'm misspeaking on that, but they all of a sudden went from the cellar, and when they shifted, then you saw the Rays, Red Sox, Dodgers, everybody else. That okay, well, you know what, this works. We're gonna follow the leader, and we're gonna try to get a little bit better at that than you.
Hey, I got a question for you, John. When you talking about that, do batters chase more at the top of the zone as opposed to the bottom of the zone?
I don't know. I'd have to look at those numbers. I just know there's more swing and miss at the top of the zone, depending on the fastball. Like if I have a high carry fastball, they call it induced vertical break, which I think a league average induced vertical break is at least the last I checked was 16.7 inches or something like that. But there's a lot. There's a lot that goes into that. However, we'll just keep it at that for right now. If I can carry above that, or at league average or above, and I can effectively pitch at the top of the zone, I know that the hitter, depending on the hitter as well, I know there's a lot more called strike whiff at the top of the zone with that type of fastball than there is with somebody that has less carry or a sinker. Obviously, you're not shouldn't be throwing at the top of the zone with a sinker, but yeah, that area up and away, or crossfire in opposite hand. There's a lot more called strike whiff up there, which is why you see. Well, it's circling back a little bit, but there's a lot more walkouts and strikeouts and a lot higher pitch counts nowadays than there ever used to be, because less people pitch into contact. But all of a sudden now you see the Rays, they're zigging when everybody else is zagging. You see how many bunts they have this year? They're playing small ball. Yeah, it's and they're and we can go into this for a while. I think the Rays they obviously have the best record in baseball, and their roster is very talented, but I don't think they have the ability to win in the playoffs. They have some pitching, but I don't think they're like, you look at the White Sox. The White Sox beat the crap out of them this year, and it's just because they put numbers up in chunks, which is what the game is right now. We're trying to hurt the baseball. We're trying to put up big innings. We're playing for the home run, but the Rays zagged because their roster dictates that they don't have. You got Junior Caminero, obviously, but
right.
There's a couple other guys there that can put the ball out of the park. But you like your Chandler Simpsons and stuff like that. They got a roster of really fast guys that are capable of handling the bat, and they just played into it. And a lot of other teams, Sox did that in the beginning of the year too. You look at who was it, Chase Maidroth? No, Antonacci and Chase Maidroth, and those guys that were bunting earlier, and now all of a sudden you see Antonacci, and Maidroth halfway through the season. Now I'm taking that first pitch and I'm trying to put it through the scoreboard, and it worked. You got one of the higher OPSs in baseball. It's an interesting discussion, but I forgot how we actually even got started on this, but
we always segue to.
I don't want to go too deep in the weeds about like the metrics of those, because there's so much to talk about there. But the Reader's Digest version of that is, they see as a certain prototype, a certain type of pitcher, and a certain type of metric, and that's what we like. We know we can succeed with our plan, just like any scheme in football, hockey, baseball, basketball, anything else. Like I was talking about the Warriors shooting the 3-point. Astros revolutionized that when they dove into the metrics, and I was actually there in 2013 when they started doing that, and it was wild, the kind of stuff that they were doing. It's okay. We're going to reapproach what your attack format to each hitter, and we're going to attack a different spot than you're used to, but it's going to be productive. And they had a plan written out, and it made sense. And you're like, okay, well, you know what? As long as you have an explanation behind this, let's go. And it worked out for them. Now everybody's kind of caught up to the curve a little bit, and I'm not going to disclose too much information here, because I know some pretty high level brass in a couple organizations that they're now starting to come up with ways to get around that approach, because hitters, they've adjusted as well, like that high fastball, they're getting on top of it. They're changing swing plane and everything else, which originally I didn't know if it was going to be possible, because it's kind of like an optical illusion. You throw a fastball at the top of the zone, your mind's eye sees the ball right here, but if it has high carry, the idea of that is, I see the ball here at a certain spot, but it's carrying further because of the efficiency of the spin and the amount of spin and the velocity, where I'm swinging at one spot and the ball's actually at a different spot in the zone. So it's not like they're late and they're beating them with a velocity all the time. They're beating them with pitch trajectory and
an optical illusion.
I call it an optical illusion because realistically it is. So now hitters have to approach it a little bit differently, where I have to hit the top of the baseball a little better, even if it's on the top of the zone. And some of them are changing their swing path, and there's a lot that goes into it. It's interesting.
So you mentioned the small ball. I swear to God, I'm so silly that like when I see teams, start utilizing the small ball, I get giddy like a schoolgirl. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, I love it.
And it all comes back from that from the end of Major League that like the psychology of the game is what I think what I love most about baseball. And
Yeah.
not like it doesn't happen in other sports, but there's no, you had mentioned it last week, the way it's set up that everybody knows he had a major league, he goes, he said he's swinging for the rafters. So everybody kind of backs up and they bunts. And then the third baseman has to book his ass down that line. Did I get that? I love that stuff. I just love it. So,
It really
well,
is a trip, man.
yeah,
It's a lot of fun. I used to love game planning for stuff. Like you look at,
mhm,
you look at positioning charts and stuff like that for infield and outfield.
mhm,
And, you're playing percentages for the most part, but you're also looking for low hanging fruit. Like I think I mentioned on the last podcast where uh, a lot of the time that gets bucketed in a way where it's almost too generalized. I know
mhm,
when we first started learning analytics in the White Sox organization, like I said, we were in the Stone Age for so long. I'm one of the last teams to kind of catch on. Some of the things were they were so generalized. It's like, we got to get these guys good at doing this, and we have to position them here based off of what I was like. Well, you know what? It's not really making sense. I love the idea, and I think that we're onto something, but we have to go a little bit deeper. So I used to do it. So the positional charts would usually be done by where the hitter hits the ball, and I would usually do them by where the pitcher gives up his most ground balls, and so like the areas the pitcher actually gives up those ground balls and fly balls, and where the weak contact is. That way, the infielders based out on that pitcher should have a different cue card essentially that they hold in their glove or their hat or whatever, based off each pitcher. So if I get a sinker baller, I'm not gonna shift to a certain spot in the field when I know he's 56% of his fastballs are going to this side, but this hitter in particular is hitting more ground balls in this area. I'm going to shade toward what that pitcher gives up because I know what he's going to try to be doing. I'm not sure what that hitter is going to be doing against this. I do, because you go into the numbers of, okay, if I'm a single ball versus a vertical carry guy, or a vertical approach guy versus a horizontal approach guy, you do see those tendencies, but I would rather play off of what the pitcher typically gives up because he's facing the same type of hitters in every lineup. And that's a little bit better indicator of where the ball is going to be on the ground and in the air. I know that a lot of people are doing that,
mhm.
but initially it wasn't that way. It was just, okay, let's shift toward the average of the hitter. And if you have an intern that's in there putting these reports together, he's working for minimum wage. So he's just going to roll through and give you averages. Okay, well, I have to get this out. I'm going to pound this out, put this on a sheet and put it in the dugout. So I did my work. Well, if you're getting beat every day, the coaching staff has to have a little bit more say. So that game planning was a lot of fun.
Hey, how integral, and this is the filthy casual silly question, how integral is the catcher? And what I mean is, does the catcher have to learn
Yes.
more information?
Yes.
Because he's throwing signals, so like he has to know every batter. He's got to
Catcher
figure
is
it
the
out.
most important player on the field.
So he is the anchor.
Yeah,
Most
he's
definitely.
the quarterback to me. Obviously, the pitcher, everything starts and stops with the pitcher.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of pitchers out there that are just nodding and going, and they're like, I can even say that for myself when I initially broke into the big leagues, and Russ Martin was my catcher.
Mhm.
I never shook him once. I very rarely shook in general, but I never shook Russ Martin one time. He just, and he even told me, he's like, just hit my glove. Yeah. Like, okay, got it, dude. I can do that. Just, I'm going to put down a number. You throw the pitch, you hit me in the glove, we're going to have success. And we did. So you have a lot of pitchers out there, especially young. You see how young, we talked about this, how young guys are now when they break into the league.
Mhm.
They don't know what it's like. They don't know how to, they don't have the perspective. So
Right.
they're relying so much on what the catcher knows and how much he's gone through the scouting report. And realistically, the catcher should know more about the pitcher than he knows about himself. I think they're the quarterback of the entire defense when it comes to this is the most important part in the field. We can go even deeper into that, but we don't have time.
Right.
Yeah, the catcher he's the QB, and because he's the one calling. There are pitchers out there that do call their own games, but those are seasoned veterans.
Right.
They know what works that day, and they've already had that discussion with the catcher. This is what I want to do with these guys. Those talks happen every day, and yeah, that's what those are. Dude, I'm getting FOMO right now. Honestly, because I remember having to do all this stuff and how much fun I had just getting together and talking with the pitcher catcher dynamic, even sometimes with the defense. Going out like, hey, if this happens, I want you here. Even if we're double play depth, I want you to shade a little bit over here because I know what we're going to throw. Sometimes that comes on like on the fly. I'll always remember we were playing the Smokies in 2024, which is the Cubs Double A affiliate, and we kind of had our backs against the wall in game 2. Runners on the corners, I believe it was, in like the second inning, we're down a run or up a run or something like that, and one of their more dangerous hitters were up. So I'm going through my scouting report. I'm like, okay, I have to go make a visit right here because there's only one out, and we either need a strikeout or a double play right here. So I would go out and say, okay, look, I want my second baseman to shade a little bit toward first base, even though we're at double play depth, and it's the opposite handed hitter up that is typically pull on the ground, oppo in the air. Well, we shifted a touch the other way because I knew that he had a 66% ground ball rate on changeups, and it wasn't the best changeup in the world. So I knew he was going to make pretty solid contact with it, but he was going to put it on the ground. It was probably going to be in the 3-4 hole. So he goes up there, great plan. They knew what they were going to do. Next pitch, changeup, bottom of the zone, ground ball right at the second baseman, 4-6-3. Rest is history. We sweep the rest of the playoffs and win the championship. Not saying because of that play, was an integral part of how do I know how we're going to do this?
Right.
There's low hanging fruit everywhere,
and
man.
You need plays like that to like kick off a momentum, or get the ball rolling in a certain direction. Like you said, that play, and then it leans you toward sweeping and winning. That's great.
Speaking of sweeping and winning and getting the ball rolling, please like and subscribe. Leave some comments below. Let us know what kind of shows you want to talk about, what kind of sports you want us to talk about. We'd love to hear all of it. It really helps us out, helps grow the channel. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Guys, another rousing episode. We kind of went all over the place there, but I think it's time for us to sign off here. As always, Big Western, Filthy Casual, and I am the Barron Von Eli. We are two Johns and a Mike. It's been a pleasure having a chat with you guys today. We'll see you next time.
See ya.